There's one simple concept that clinical psychologists and child development experts use that helps to create lifelong emotional resilience, better relationships, and even career success for your child. It's called secure attachment, which literally means forming a deep emotional bond that connects parent to child. But it's very different from just loving your baby or buying the right parenting products. It's really easy to fall into a cycle that looks something like this. We focus on sleep training, we find the perfect stroller, and we worry about every little milestone. Then we stress about whether we're doing enough. Secure attachment flips this completely. It's based on the belief that one fundamental bond matters more than all the other parenting techniques and products combined. Instead of constantly worrying about whether you're failing as a new parent, focusing on attachment prevents that anxiety by actively building your child's emotional foundation. And today I'm going to show you exactly how to do this in your home using 3 simple principles. Whether you have a newborn or a 9-month-old who seems to need you constantly, these principles will work and will actually make your life easier, not harder. So let's dive into the most powerful tool child development experts use, and that is responsive caregiving. Clinical psychologists understand that babies are gathering information about the world through every interaction. They notice if you respond quickly when they cry. They observe your facial expressions when they babble. And then they form expectations about whether adults can be trusted to meet their needs. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how your baby calms down faster in your arms than anyone else's? They stop crying the moment they hear your voice enter the room. They make more eye contact and smile more with you than strangers. And they definitely don't like it when they're torn away from your loving embrace. So if you want a securely attached child, you must be consistently responsive. If you want a resilient child, you must be reliable, especially when you're exhausted and overwhelmed. And if you don't want your child to feel anxious about whether their needs will be met, then you should also try not to ignore their cues when you're stressed or busy. For example, let's say that your baby just started crying and you have no idea why. Now, your first instinct might be to feel frustrated or think, what now? But instead, if you were to adopt this responsive caregiving approach, you would demonstrate the calm problem solving you want them to learn when they're upset. So you might say, oh, you're telling me something, aren't you? Let's figure this out together. Then you would actually check their diaper, or offer food, or pick them up where they can see your calm face. And then you would say something like this, there we go, that's better, or I hear you, sweetheart. Now, I know this sounds overwhelming, especially when you're already running on 3 hours of sleep and haven't showered in days. And let's be honest, sometimes you are going to feel frustrated or just not respond immediately. Now, although that's not ideal, it's okay because you can use those moments to teach your little one that everyone makes mistakes and relationships can be repaired. So you might say, Mommy was feeling overwhelmed and didn't come right away. I'm here for you now, and I'm going to help you feel better. This shows your child that you care about their feelings, and more importantly, it teaches them exactly what healthy relationships look like. Now, responsive caregiving is powerful, but even the best responsiveness won't work without the second piece, which is providing consistent physical contact and social stimulation. And this is where we as new parents often struggle because we've been conditioned to worry about spoiling our babies, like we're somehow creating bad habits and making them too dependent. Sometimes we even feel guilty about holding them too much because we want our kids to be independent and self-soothing. But the truth is you cannot spoil a baby with too much love and attention. In fact, having no consistent physical contact and interaction is what makes them insecure and clingy later on. Think about it like this. Imagine if you were traveling abroad and your tour guide never acknowledged when you spoke to them, never made eye contact when you pointed out something interesting, or even ignored you when you were clearly lost and needed help. You'd be anxious, confused, and overwhelmed in that foreign place. And that's exactly how your baby feels without consistent interaction and contact. They're in a completely new world and you're their guide. When your child knows that you'll hold them when they need comfort, or that you'll respond with facial expressions and words when they babble, they actually feel secure. They're not constantly wondering, will someone help me? Or does anyone see me? Instead, they can just focus on learning and growing, which means way less fussing and crying and way more consistent curiosity and contentment. Let me show you exactly what that looks like in real life. When my 4 kids were babies, we followed this simple protocol. When baby babbles or makes a sound, we respond with words and expressions every single time. My husband and I both did this, and the older children helped out by doing this for the younger children. Now, all of the kids learned to communicate early. I remember a house guest once commenting that my 4-year-old spoke like a little lawyer, and they formed strong attachment bonds with us. And I see it time and time again in my parent coaching program with new parents when they focus on the attachment bond and stop worrying about all the trivial baby concerns. That's the power of consistent interaction. When babies know they'll be heard and held, they stop feeling anxious and start feeling confident. They actually become your little communication partner instead of your constant worry. Now, I'm not saying everyone in your baby's life has to respond instantly. Babies can learn that grandma's a little more quiet while dad is more animated, but that takes time and maturity. And for the big, important interactions like responding to crying or communication attempts, it's always better when the key adults in your child's life are present and consistent. Because when the adults are consistent about responding to your baby's needs, babies stop feeling anxious and they start feeling secure. And that's when you see that calm, content baby without the constant stress. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds like a lot when I'm already barely keeping my head above water. And I get it. But when you adopt this approach, it actually makes your life easier, not harder in the long run. Within just a few weeks of consistent, responsive caregiving and physical contact, you'll start seeing real changes in your baby's mood and behavior, and you'll be setting them up for a lifetime of positive outcomes associated with a secure attachment bond. But there's one more piece that makes all the difference, and this is the most important part of secure attachment that completely changes everything. Instead of just saying, I don't know what's wrong, or they're just being fussy, attachment theory teaches parents to ask one crucial question: what is my baby trying to communicate to me? You see, when your baby cries for seemingly no reason, they're not being difficult. They just haven't learned how to communicate their needs clearly yet. When they won't settle down, they're not being demanding. They just haven't learned the skill of self-regulation. And when they seem to need you constantly, they're not being clingy. They just haven't learned that you're a reliable, permanent presence in their life. This shift in thinking changes everything, because instead of feeling frustrated and confused, you start actively teaching them that communication works. And that's when you see real, lasting security, because your child actually knows how to get their needs met. For example, imagine your baby's crying and you've checked everything obvious: diaper, hunger, temperature, but they're still upset. Instead of feeling helpless and hoping that they'll magically stop crying, you would teach them that their communication is being heard and that you'll keep trying to sort out the issue. So to teach this communication skill to your little one, something you might do is you might say, you're telling me something important and I'm listening. And then you would narrate what you're doing by either saying, let me check if you're uncomfortable. Or if they're really distressed, you would provide immediate comfort by picking them up and saying, they're there, I'm here, let's figure this out together. Now, if your baby has a complete meltdown at this point and they're just too overwhelmed to be soothed, that's okay. Your first priority is keep them safe and help them feel secure. So you might need to just hold them and wait it out. The key is to stay calm yourself and then come back to the problem solving when they're ready to receive comfort. But if your baby remains relatively calm and starts to settle, then when they begin to quiet down, you would say something like, there you go, you're feeling better now. I heard you and I helped you. And then you would continue to provide gentle comfort until they're completely settled. And this is what makes all the difference. Your child actually learns that communication works, which means less frustrated crying, less anxiety, and more trust in you as their secure base. So the next time your baby is fussing, do step in and help, especially if they seem distressed. But then ask yourself, what might they be trying to tell me? And here's the key part. Don't just guess and move on. Actually take the time to respond to their communication attempt. Because when you consistently show them that their communication matters, something amazing happens. They start trusting that you'll always be there to help, and more of that secure, content behavior you actually want to see emerges. But here's where the timeline becomes crucial. Babies begin forming attachment bonds in the first few months of life, and by 6 months, that bond is clearly established. The research shows us that there's a critical window between 0 and 9 months where this foundation is being built. You'll notice around 3 to 6 months that your baby responds differently to you than strangers. More smiling, more babbling, and faster soothing when you hold them. By about 6 months, they'll show clear separation anxiety, getting upset when you leave. And around 7 to 8 months, they might become wary of strangers. Now, if you're thinking that you haven't been doing enough or wondering if you've missed some window, please hear this. You're probably doing better than you think. And it's never too late to start being more intentional about building this bond. When you consistently apply these 3 principles, responsive caregiving, physical contact and interaction, and reading their communication cues, you'll see a more content baby, easier transitions, and that amazing feeling of being truly connected to your child. But here's when things get tricky. Even when you understand attachment and have built the secure bond, you still need to know what to do when your child hits the toddler years. And sometimes it's going to look a little like this. You say to them, time to brush teeth, and they run away screaming. Or you say, we need to leave the playground, and suddenly they're throwing themselves on the ground. So you try reasoning with them, and by the 5th attempt, you're either questioning everything you know about parenting, or you've started yelling yourself. But here's the thing, there's actually a specific 5-step parenting framework that helps you handle any challenging behavior while maintaining that secure attachment bond that you've worked so hard to build. And I show you exactly how to use it in this video. So if you're ready to move beyond the baby stage with confidence, knowing exactly how to handle tantrums, defiance, and all those tricky toddler moments while keeping your strong connection intact, make sure you check it out.